to see you all this afternoon. So, as we always start off the broadcast, we always like to share an inspirational word. So, we're going to pull that up and then we're going to have our discussion soon after. So, our inspirational word or inspirational quote, as I should say, is coming from none other than Abraham Lincoln. And it says, nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Woo. And yes, that is a very powerful, powerful statement right there. So yes, when someone has power and authority and money, you will truly see their true character will come out, and they will show you who they truly are once they get into that position of authority and they have a little money in their pocket. And then you will truly see what they're all about. And it makes me think about coming up, and as we go through life, from our childhood days, and then we come into adults. And then as we see our friends and family members grow and establish themselves, and then you see people start to change in the way they treat others because they get a little title behind their name, or they come into a position of authority, and then they feel like they're better or superior than other people. And then that's a testament of what their true character is. So that's why we're going to have this discussion today and have a real character assessment of where is it that you draw the line. Brother Dave Collymore, blessings, my brother. So good to see you. Yes, yes. Long time, my brother. Always a pleasure. All right. So yes, we're going to get into our discussion for today. So let me get into it. Let me just share that on the screen. And our discussion is going to be, where do you draw the line? So when we talk about where do you draw the line, you can be talking about many different variations of things. So let's put a couple of different subtopics into this discussion. And I would love for you to share your feedback in the chat. And if you come up with something else where you want to state where you are drawing the line on certain things that you don't want to be a part of your life or in your environment, then please, by all means, put that into the chat as well. So when we talk about where you draw the line, what can drive you to a place in which you come out of your true character? And how do you avoid being taken into that point? So when we talk about character, so what is the true definition of character? Well, character is defined as the mental and moral qualities distinctive to an individual. So we all have some similar character traits, but in the same regards, we also have many different character traits. So no one's character is the same as another. We all have some similarities, but we also have some differences. So each one is very different in how they interact with others. And your character, your integrity, the way you conduct and carry yourself is a true testament to the true person in which you are. So when we talk about where do you draw the line, when it comes to your personal relationships, what are some things that you're going to draw the line and say that, no, I'm not going to tolerate that in this or any relationship that I'm involved with? So let's talk about when it comes to your kids and family members. What are some things you're going to draw the line when it comes to those individuals? All right. And when we're talking about being in your workspace, what are some things you're going to draw the line when it comes to your co-employees or your superiors in the workspace? There always has to be a line that's, no, we're not going to allow that. We're not going to tolerate that because you're infringing on my beliefs and what my standards are, what my moral values are. So anytime someone crosses that line, then you have to put a stop, a cease and desist on that. And, let them know that that's not going to be tolerated. So when it comes to the general public, where do you draw the line with that? When it comes to dealing with people that you're not really familiar with, people that you may not know, do you have a different tolerance level in dealing with them as opposed to someone that you already know? I would think so, because when you think about it, someone that knows you and they're accustomed to dealing or having an interaction with you, they know, there's some limits, some lines that have already been set, some boundaries that have already been set, where they know, like, no, you don't want to go there. So we keep it in a very professional or cordial manner. But as opposed to someone in which you don't know, you're out in the general public, then you have to, have a little more leniency, so to speak, because they're not familiar with your standards, your moral values, and the things that you're willing to accept. So you have to let them know and listen, we're not, standing for that. So I'm going to give you some space here. So as long as they don't cross those boundaries, then things can be worked out. But you have to put some boundaries in place to make it known that some things are not acceptable, and then make sure you are being respected in your particular space. All right. So what are some of the lines of conversations that will not be tolerated within your company? When it comes to setting boundaries, and initially when you start off in a relationship with someone, so say for instance, your significant other, did you set those boundaries, those rules and guidelines in the beginning phases of the relationship, or did they come about as time went on? And then as, certain situations arise, then you discuss those certain and different things, which you say, all right, well, no, I don't agree or want to deal with that type of issue. So let's try to move away from that. So those are just some things we have to think about, and we want to discuss here in this discussion on where do you draw the line. All right, so just put in the chat there any situations in which you may have had to deal with and you wanted to shed a little light or share an experience that you may have had, and where you had to set that boundary or set that line and say that, no, we're not going to go into that. We're not going to cross those barriers. Those are not something that I want to indulge in. So when it came to your personal relationships, what are some things that some boundaries you had to set when it comes to your personal relationships? Was it a certain time before you can really be intimate with one another? Was it boundaries as far as I need a certain amount of time and space to myself? Was it a certain boundaries as to when you can call or come by the person's residence? What were some of those things, those boundaries that you had to set when the relationship first started? And when it comes to your kids and your family members, what are some of those boundaries that you had to set? Especially with our kids, there are rules and guidelines that go into every family structure. There has to be guidelines in which the family has to abide by to make sure the family doesn't get deconstructed and move in a manner that is not constructive to everyone else going forward and having positive results. So you have to have some rules set in place. There are chores that need to be done. There are time constraints on when family members or the kids need to be in the house. And when it comes to a point where the kid is saying that, they don't want to abide by those rules, then that's when you have to set that guideline and say, well, if you're not going to be able to abide by these rules, then you're going to have to find your own place, and then you can live under your own rules. But as long as you're living under the authority and the presence of your parents, you have to abide by their rules, their boundaries in which they have set. Of the triggers that can cause us to get to that place where we might get out of character. So some of those triggers could be physical abuse, verbal abuse, not respecting the rules and the boundaries, like I mentioned previously, when it comes to the kids not wanting to abide by the rules of the curfew of when they're supposed to be in the house or whatever the case may be. Not working in unison, not working together. You want to work as an individual, so not working together. So that is something that has to be addressed. We can always get much further along in life when we're working together as one. But as long as we're working as a bunch of individuals, we're like moving in opposite directions. Little progress is going to be made. It's like you're fighting against one another. Come together, work together as one. So another trigger is some people are unable to handle the truth. They're unable or not willing to accept correction. They get very defensive. These are just some of the things that are triggers that you have to draw the line and say, well, come on, we can work around this situation, but there has to be some type of compromise. So family, I thank you so much for joining us this evening for another edition of What's Holding You Back. And be sure to tune in next week, next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time for another edition of What's Holding You Back. And if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channels, please go ahead and do so. Christine's YouTube channel is Clear Ambitions, and my YouTube channel is Rob McCray Networking. So once again, thank you all for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next week on the next edition of What's Holding You Back.
Like an eagle and go high.